Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of our How Tuesday webinar series, which will be an introduction to the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal. My name is Carl Villacova, and I am the Communications Director for Monmouth University's Urban Coast Institute, which is located about a mile from the beach on the New Jersey shore. And I also serve as the project manager for the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal's tech team. I do these Portal 101 webinars maybe once or twice a year. And one thing I always enjoy about it is they do tend to be small groups like this. We'll probably have a couple more join in progress, but it keeps things very informal. There will be a Q&A portion at the end of my tutorial, but really with a group this small, by any means, if you have a question on the spot about something you see me doing on the screen or something that seems confusing, feel free to just give me a holler and interject. You can also type a question into the chat at any time. I may not be able to see that right away, but I will read through them and go through anything that accumulates when I can. And finally, a heads up that this session is being recorded for the benefit of those who couldn't attend, and I'll have it posted on our webinars page and the portal blog, usually within 12 to 24 hours, if you'd like to share that link with anybody who couldn't make it. And with all that said, let's hop into it. A little bit of a agenda for today's webinar. I'll start off by giving some background on the portal itself and all of the different people who are involved in it, and then jump into a tour of the site and its data and tools. And following that, we will have a Q&A session, but like I said, feel free to ask questions at any time. We've got a good, small, manageable group, so we can keep it informal. A lot of times when people go to the beach, I think for most people, they look out at the water and they see something like this, which is just this vast, calm, watery void. And it's so calming that it has been shown to have psychological benefits, according to a lot of studies. But the truth is a little bit different. The ocean is actually a very busy place, and especially here in the mid-Atlantic, and it's getting busier all the time. And as this map shows, you've got a huge amount of cargo and big vessel traffic coming in and out of ports like New York and Hampton Roads and Philadelphia. You've got a whole lot of recreational boating that goes on off our coast. It is the nexus of the telecom, submarine telecom cables that cross from here to Europe and other places. Offshore wind is on the way, and so many other things. And what the portal does is show people how all of these things relate to each other, and in some cases conflict with one another, so that people who are in ocean management roles can make better informed decisions. What's on the portal? Currently about 6,000 or 7,000 different map layers, I've lost count, organized under about a dozen themes or categories. We feature long-range data focused on ocean areas, not real-time data like something like the Maricus Oceans Map and some other sites do. We have a lot of tools for helping users share their maps and collaborate together in groups on projects. We have a lot of instructional and educational resources and content, which I'll give you a quick view of in a minute. The portal team currently is Monmouth University's Urban Coast Institute, where I sit, Rutgers University, Duke University, our developer EcoTrust out of Portland, Oregon, working under the guidance of MARCO, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean. And if you're not familiar with MARCO, check out midatlanticocean.org for more information. But it was established in 2009 as a consortium for the states, the Mid-Atlantic states, which we would define as New York down through Virginia, to collaborate together on ocean issues, recognizing that fish don't know where the Delaware state line ends and New Jersey begins, and neither do currents or spills or all kinds of important things that are going off off our coasts that are of mutual interest and need to be collaborated on. It is currently chaired by Maryland, Casey Nolan. There are a couple of other like regional portals that are like ours, and in one case, a national one called the Marine Cadastre. And you can see we take a lot of data from the Marine Cadastre that serves as important baseline data, national maps that show things that that span both coasts in some cases. Um, we also work very closely with our counterparts in New England, NROC, which has its own portal, the Northeast Regional Ocean Portal, especially on big data sets, stuff like our marine life, our fishing data, because people who are fishing out of mid-Atlantic ports tend to go up into the coastal areas off of the Cape, and vice versa. We get a lot of traffic from those ports down off New Jersey and Virginia and so forth. So it's important for us to work together and create things that are really of a lot of sense for both portals. There are some state portals throughout the Mid-Atlantic, and we share a lot of data with them, and in some cases ingest some of their material. A few examples of how the portal is being used. Certainly, offshore wind has been a major driver of the data that we've put on the portal. These are applications of high interest. So we have stuff that shows where the different lease areas are, where areas are that are in earlier stages of planning, areas where offshore, the turbines themselves are planned to go, cables, etc., so that other users, whether they be in shipping, um, fishing, or government agencies, can see how all of these different things are relating to each other and make those better informed decisions. And also to inform public comment on open applications and public comment periods. A lot of people think in this wireless world that the submarine cable is a thing of the past, but it's not so. It really actually still carries something close to 98% of all overseas traffic, and that includes internet. So you have actually seen a lot of new high-speed fiber optic cables being built in the mid-Atlantic. A lot of them have, if you look at the maps, historically gone to the New Jersey and New York coasts. But now we're starting to see quite a few of them getting built down into the Virginia Beach area to build in some redundancy. And you could see a couple of these lines coming out of Virginia Beach that were financed by Facebook, Google, and Microsoft. Huge cost projects, and they used the portal to help design the alignments to dodge areas where they knew where we could show that fishing gear that hits the bottom that could potentially get snagged on a line goes to where there's areas where there's unexploded ordnances that were deposited after World War II and so forth. Areas where offshore wind is being built, shipwrecks, and so you can kind of see how they've dodged all of that, and it's interesting to see. The Coast Guard has been a major user and has helped design things like some of the shipping fairways that will kind of go through and around some of the offshore wind areas, areas where they need new anchorages. And there were just a whole lot of what they called port access route studies done all up and down the Atlantic coast in light of offshore wind being built, in light of climate change and planned port infrastructure, where they really stepped back and took a look at how their existing routing measures stood to hold up given all of these changes in time. And you can see some of the proposals that came out of those studies on the portal. And as they were being proposed, you could use the portal to evaluate them, submit your own comments, and use maps to help inform the things that you were saying. One user that we didn't necessarily consider when the portal was being designed, but it has become a big user, is education. We're seeing it more and more used as a classroom tool. And I have done a lot of trainings for teachers, and whether they be in middle school or at the college level. And, even as you can see in the bottom right, just going out and setting up the portal sometimes at um, public events where there's uh, you know, ocean centric things going on, has been a lot of fun to just show people maps and show them how they could use it to learn more about the things going on at sea. And with that, I will jump into Portal. And for those who'd like to follow along, the URL is portal.midatlanticocean.org. Feel free to jump into Marine Planner and click on some of the things I'm going through as I go, if you like. Before I do that, though, just wanted to call your attention to a few other features. On the News tab, we have a blog here where, if you are a semi-regular user of the portal, it's a good page to keep an eye on, to just keep tabs of what the latest, greatest stuff is on the portal in terms of new data, tool enhancements. You can click on any of these articles here for a rundown of what just came out, what the data is, where it came from, how you can find it. And we keep this up to date, and you can usually see a few different new pieces a month on there. Ocean Stories. This is a pretty cool feature, sort of our homegrown story map meets digital magazine feature. And this is one that I did about Virginia's test turbines and how the planners used the portal and other tools to help design the alignment for the export cable that's connecting to the two test turbines out there. And the cool thing is, as you scroll down, this strip up there shows map data that helps explain the story, and the story helps explain what you're seeing in the maps. And it changes as you get down into different sections, and it includes different videos sometimes, images, helpful links. So a good kind of educational feature. Some of these ocean stories are also examples of how the portal is being used, or just highlighting different ocean uses that we have map data that can help illustrate. Current agency actions, another feature that we keep on here for helping people keep abreast of some of the different public questions that are going on for applications for offshore wind, things going on with NOAA and the Coast Guard and so forth, where they're asking for public comment. And you can just see, I'll click on this one up top, which has to do with offshore wind in Maryland. And you'll see once you get there, it'll tell you what the expiration date for that is, links to the Federal Register notice for it, a press release. In some cases, if we have a map that directly illustrates the thing that is being discussed, we'll include that link. Our data catalog, and we'll get more into this in a little bit, but just gives a full list of everything that's on the portal, download links, explanations of those things. The help tab, using the portal, you may, a day or two from now, get back on the portal and wonder how I did something that I showed you, and want to go back and find a tutorial on that, and you can here. Whether that there's short videos, fact sheets, diagrams, written step-by-step instructions. So keep an eye on that one if you need it. And the webinars page has past How Tuesday webinars, and I'll post this one to that page when we're done. With that said, you can just click on the map and that will take you into Marine Planner. Now, right on the left-hand strip here are the 14 themes that I mentioned. And the first one is administrative. This basically is a collection of government boundaries and jurisdictions. And just an illustration of how the portal works, I'll click a few of them right now. And they're all starting to highlight. Once they're up, if you click on the active tab, this gives you some controls to manipulate how all of this stuff is presented online. So you can click to mute one, like this Coast Guard districts. Let's say you want that one to go on the bottom, you can just drag it to the bottom, and that way other stuff sits on top of it. You can hit this middle button here to adjust the opacity for any layer, or you could click the X to simply get rid of it. And the green eye for information icon, if you click on that, will give you a drop down that includes a short explanation of the layer. And for any of that, you can click read more. That will take you directly to the data catalog entry for that map, which has the full explanation, download links, metadata links, a link to the source for where it came from, the agency, or if it's a page that has other downloads, and then tiles, which is if you have your own GIS software and want to just grab the link and import it into your tool, you can through that. And I'll quickly mention that we view the portal as a public information effort overall, and will, whenever possible, provide downloads to all of our data. There are some exceptions where there's confidentiality issues or something like that, but probably the vast majority of what we have on here is downloadable. So conservation, I can't unfortunately run through everything that we have on here, so I'll just kind of try to call out one or two key maps in each of these themes just to give you a flavor for what's on there. So you see a lot of the different marine sanctuaries in and outside of our region. You can find on here other areas that just have some kind of conservation measures in place or are proposed. Our most recently added data to the portal are a few state ones here that you see from Virginia, which show, as you can click on the legend tab to see, submerged aquatic vegetation, oyster and blue crab sanctuaries. And for a lot of our data, you can click on the map for a pop-up that will tell you more information about it, in some cases helpful links with additional data. There's also this button here to clear all layers if you want to just start fresh. You can always click to just get back into Marine Planner up there. So fishing. There are two divisions of this, and I'll call out the distinction. The fishing communities at sea by port data shows only stuff by port, where the other one up here includes all of our stuff that is regional, or in some cases national, or from New England down through Virginia, if we did it in partnership with NROC. So two of the big data types that we have here are the VMS and VTR data. VMS, vessel monitoring system, is by catch type, and VMS is essentially like EasyPass, that the transponders are on the vessels and pinging their locations and collected through NOAA, and we will take all of that data through time create summary maps that strip away any kind of identifying information about individual vessels. So, for example, you can see Scallop, 2015 through 19. Let that pop up. And that gives you a full picture of where most of that activity was. Now, if you go down to VTR, these are from vessel trip reports that are submitted by the vessel captains. These are also showing gear type. So whereas VMS has scallop, here you might look at bottom trawl. That would also capture some other fisheries, but you can still see some of the overlap right there as it loads. And well, didn't quite load all the way there, had a little glitch, but you can get the picture. One of the reasons we call these VTR maps or communities at sea maps is because you can click on the map to get this pop-up that shows you all of the different communities that relied on this particular area at sea. So in this case, you could see Cape May, Virginia, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York. Really gives you the sense of the interstate nature of commercial fishing, and could be a valuable tool if you are somebody in an ocean management role and want to do public outreach. You know, you need to talk to people in Hampton, Virginia, and all of these other places. The other cool thing is you can click on the ports that sent ships to those areas, and for that gear type, it will tell you some economic information. 14,734 total fisher days came out of that port for that 5-year window. Close to 1,100 trips and so on. And whereas that one had that full regional view, here is where you would then, again, we'll go back to dredge, 11 through 15. You could type in any particular port. So I think we were just looking at Cape May. And this will tell you where 90% of that effort took place in that time period. So another way to really get into some very specific looks at where fishing is being done by different communities. Moving on to habitat. Basically, a lot of information characterizing the seafloor. Artificial reefs you can find there, and click for pop-ups that tell you the names of them. Our bathymetry data can be found here. So things like, I love this layer, the NOAA NCEI, topographic and bathymetric mosaic. And then that's kind of near shore, and you combine that with something like the multi-beam archive, which really gets you out by the canyons, and you can see in pretty cool detail what the seafloor looks like out there. And that's taking a minute to load because it is pretty high resolution. And I'll bump that up. And you really get that view of what some of these areas off our coast look like. After that, we have marine life. Lots of information showing marine birds, marine mammals, sea turtles, fish. Our latest data that we just added for this would be the sea turtle strandings. This is a season that you really see a lot of that happening, especially for cold stunnings. But you can look at, oh, looks like I've got to take a look at that after the webinar, so I'll skip this. Our sea turtle density slider, another one that we just recently added. The sliders, you can find these throughout the portal, show a lot of temporal data for the most part. And you can either click the button to automatically animate or toggle through to manually change, in this case, the turtle type and the month of the year. So let's go with, let's say, loggerhead. And I'll zoom out here so you can really see how the migration takes place over the course of the year. And it's taking a second to load, but I'll click play. So now we're getting into the warmer months. They're coming up north. And then you see it start to reverse. Pretty cool feature just to help you visualize some of this time series data in a more dynamic way. Now, the Marine Life Library, kind of like the Communities at Sea by Port stuff, this allows you to see all of the individual species. We broke this out because it just would have been completely unwieldy to have drop downs of all of this like we have with the other data. But for example, where above where we had groups for marine mammals, where you could see something like all baleen whales, here is where you would come for, let's say, humpbacks. So where are they in the month of November? And you can do that for every different month of the year to get a picture of how they migrate and where they tend to be throughout the year. Scrolling down to maritime, a lot of our human use data is in here. So you can see vessel transit counts by month. We have a slider for that, but also for all vessel traffic. And AIS, Automatic Identification System, data is also kind of like the E-ZPass system, where the transponder is pinging satellites and infrastructure on shore that show, I think, every vessel 65 feet and above has to carry them now, and certain other vessel classes. But more and more people are carrying them, even if they don't have to these days. So you're starting to see over the years, the data has become more rich, but we have it by all. If you want to just see cargo, if you just want to see fishing vessels, passenger vessels, so whether they be the luxury liners or ferries, like you can see here in New York and North Jersey, and other ones. Scrolling down, we have lots of stuff here, wrecks and obstructions, some of the Coast Guard proposals that I mentioned in my PowerPoint. You can find there historic lighthouses, submarine cable and pipeline locations. And zooming out, like I said, you can really tend to see how much stuff there is here in the mid-Atlantic, and it kind of goes quiet south of Virginia. Looks like that's kind of a slow load, but if I were to let it sit, it would get very thick up there. Oceanography, a lot of the physical characteristics of the ocean, data for fronts, for sea surface temperatures, historic storms, bottom temperatures, offshore wind speed. So that's something, again, that you can see an annual summary or go through our slider to see how they change from month to month. Recreation data. We have a lot of stuff that we've done through surveys with partners like the Surfrider Foundation, or working with different industries. For example, we a year ago worked with the commercial whale and dolphin watch operators from the Mid-Atlantic to create this map that shows kind of the prime areas and other general areas where they go sometimes, and get a sense of where most of that activity happens. We've also got stuff like our new boat ramps and coastal water trails data maps. Renewable energy, certainly probably the most viewed theme on the portal. So we have, you see 4 drop downs here. We basically have this sorted by most to, or least to furthest far along in terms of the maps. So we have the planning and lease areas right here. Then we have projects under review, and that would include data showing proposed cable and turbine and other infrastructure locations, which you can see if you zoom in. Beneath that, we have permanent projects, which are those basically under construction now or very close to it, and operational offshore energy projects, which for the Mid-Atlantic and East Coast would just be a couple off Virginia right now and Block Island off Rhode Island. Beneath that, socioeconomic, a few maps here really getting at the ocean's importance to the Mid-Atlantic's economy. So we have stuff like ocean economics GDP, which is taken from census data. Well, that's where it's derived, and presented through NOAA. And for each coastal county, they are shaded to indicate, let me close some of this stuff out so it's a little bit of a quicker load. Essentially, the darkest areas have the highest amount of activity directly related to the ocean. But you can click on any map and it'll give you a pop-up that tells you from the NOAA ENOW data how many businesses are directly dependent on it, on the ocean, total wages, GDP. This here is 2017 data, and we very soon will be updating that to, I believe, 2020 to take advantage of the most recent census effort. And then finally, oh, no, I skipped security. A lot of declassified naval data here, danger zones and restricted areas, munitions and explosives of concern where there's known dump areas or specific sites where there's things that have been found. And then finally, water quality. Here is where we have our ocean acidification monitoring sites data, which is being used to develop a monitoring plan for the Mid-Atlantic region. And some other ones, EPA attains assessment areas, which you can click on to get water body pretty much report card links that will tell you if there's an area that has some kind of stress to it. And that is the rundown of our themes. And now I'll just show you some of the tools that we have available on the portal. Try and run through this very quickly. So you see some buttons up here on the top right. A print export button. So if you wanted to print or get a short URL for a link, you can do that with this button. We have a linear measurement tool if you needed a quick measurement in nautical miles or kilometers from one point to another. An area measurement tool. We have a shapes tool, and I'll look over here in the My Planner tab. You have the ability to draw shapes, lines, or points, and then save them. So let's say I wanted to highlight something out here like the canyon. You could do that. You could save it. You could add some notes to it. And anytime that you logged in, and you need to be a registered user to use this for the portal. I am logged in. You would be able to find it under your My Planner tab. We also have here a button to import an external layer. So let's say there was something that we didn't have on the portal that you found online somewhere, like here is one for docs, which I found from the US DOT. For that, you would just type in the layer, identify what kind of map it is. In this case, it is a feature service, and it asks for the layer ID, which we see is number 2 according to that page. Type that in. Next, give it a layer name, docs. You could type in some notes if you wanted to. Save it. And now you can see it starting to import. And the cool thing is, now that it's here, anytime that you were to come into the portal fresh, you could then just go to My Planner, go under your user imported layers, click docs, and it would be there. You could also share it with people in a few different ways. So clicking on the little gear icon, you have some options here to share with a group if you've joined one, and I'll show you that in a second. Or it can give you a short URL if you wanted to share it like that. I'll hit cancel here. Sorry, I'm getting a little locked up. While I have this reloading, let me ask if anyone has any initial just questions about anything I'm doing or showing so far. Okay. I'm going to start a group just to illustrate this point. I think I chose a layer here that is super long to load, which is the issue coming in externally. There must be a lot of docs. Okay. So groups are a cool way to share any maps that you've created and want to bookmark, shapes you've drawn, anything that you've imported and wanted to save. If you're a registered user, all you have to do is click to create one. You could give it a name. We'll call it How Tuesday. You can make it public or you can make it private. If you have an image you wanted to upload, you could do that. Create group. Oh, I've got to give it a description. Sample for today. And now that is here, and any one of you could join it. And what that would get you is anything that you were working on. Let's say you created a shape or imported a layer, or you wanted to bookmark a map. We'll call it, I'll do a sample of that. Map bookmarks, new, and I'll call this for How Tuesday. I'll save it. Now you can see my bookmarks here. I'll share it to the group. And now, if you were to scroll down and find that group and join it, you would have access to that. It would be in your My Planner, or you could just click there to make it activate right off the bat. And then finally, down on the bottom right, you have some different base map options. NOAA nautical chart, satellite map. You've got physical maps, a few different options for that. and of course, by default, our ocean base map. And I think I've talked a lot and would like to open this now to questions, thoughts, comments, anything that you've seen me do that you'd like to know more about, or if you're wondering if we have certain data, any questions you have. And I also just quickly acknowledge September Marr and Jess Watts from Marco are on the line here. I'm glad to see them. And so if you have any Marco related questions, they can be my lifeline on that as well. Anything somebody would like to see more of? Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
Hey, Carl, and sorry for not having my camera on here, but I have a question. So one thing that I learned today was about importing layers. So you're saying if I were working on, say, an abandoned derelict vessel project, and I could import a layer from like the state of Virginia or another state who has a map and they're tracking it, as long as it's compatible-ish.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of different options for that. So you can see here on the drop down, ArcRest, very common, feature services, which are more and more common, WMS, XYZ, vector tile. So we give options for a lot of the common stuff. And if there's anything people are interested in us adding, we're open to it. And I should also probably mention that if you are a registered user using the Shapes tool, you could actually upload your own stuff on the portal. So if you've got a shape file, or even if you've got a spreadsheet with a bunch of coordinates on it, you can actually, upload that into the system and share it in a group, or, just have it ready for you in your My Planner. And you can see shape files, CSVs, GeoJSON. That's actually a pretty new tool, and we're looking to continue to expand it so that especially users who don't have GIS programs available to them can use the portal to do all kinds of things like that. And I see a comment in the chat from Lincoln Lewis. I used the portal a lot for researching Tangier Island and the Chesapeake. I'd love to hear more about that if you don't mind. I always love hearing any stories about how people are using the portal and really what we could add to it to make it more useful. Especially, this is the time of year that we're going to get started on our next year work plan. So it's we may be able to put something under the Christmas tree for you, so to speak.
Well, thanks so much, Carl. Sorry, I'm in a Panera right now listening. But yeah, our research in Chesapeake Bay was focused on the working landscape around Tangier Island and the watermen. And we really mapped the impediments, whether it be munitions or training zones. And just your data collection was really helpful because the National Park Service that we're submitting this documentation to had a lot of copyright considerations. Mm-hmm. And they weren't really able to include a lot of state data. But through this process in your compilation, we were able to kind of sort through it and see what was suitable for National Park Service. Thanks so much.
Great. And were you able to find everything you were looking for okay?
Yes. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of any Christmas treats you could include in the portal. Yeah. But I'll let you know via email in the future if I come across anything. I think the most important thing that we learned was really the copyright information. even though states might have open access, the federal government, especially if we submit it for the Library of Congress, they really want perpetual copyright. And that was really an impediment for us. So any information you can include about the metadata would be really helpful. Thanks
Yes.
so much.
And I'll add, kind of related to that, very recently, we adjusted our base maps to include a couple of more open source options, because somebody on the West Coast Data Portal, which covers California up through Washington, mentioned that somebody wanted to submit something for a paper and found that they didn't want to use certain maps because they were done with like an Esri based map. So we do have, the Open Streets and the USGS one and a few others to assist with that.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Sure. One quick tip also, I always forget this is there, but at the very top, this search data, when in doubt, you can just type in something up here. So let's say I just didn't know which theme artificial reefs was going to be. If you start typing it, you will get those options there and can find something quickly that way. Any other either questions or thoughts on either data we could add or tools that we might add that would make the portal more useful for you? We'd love to hear that too.
Hi again, Carl.
Sure.
Just one question regarding the extent of a lot of data sets.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can show through the portal when it first uploads if the extent is limited to a certain area? Because sometimes I sit and I wait for it to load. I'm like, is there anything else coming? Maybe there's like a key plan or something of the data extent or something. Just a question, thanks.
No, nothing like that I can think of. I will say overall, we are primarily focused on the shoreline out. We do have a lot of data for the key estuaries and major rivers through our area, like the Chesapeake and Delaware Bay and Long Island Sound and so forth. And in some cases beyond that, if it really comes down to what users need and what they tell us. So, for example, I think our AIS cuts off a little bit past the Port of Philadelphia because that's where I believe Coast Guard initially indicated that it was useful to them. I know this doesn't quite answer your question. It is a bit of a mixed bag, especially with some stuff that we're getting from Marine Cadastre or different federal partners that are all the way up and down the coast, or all around the entire US. And there's other stuff that really is just mid-Atlantic centric. And then other things that might go down to North Carolina. It really just depends on where it's coming from and what users indicate they need.
Totally understand. Thanks. And I'd just like to compliment you because I talk about GIS and NOAA, and they're much more complicated to use. So I really appreciate your work. Thanks.
Thank you. Certainly, knowing that there's sixth graders using the portal really pressures us to keep it very simple, and we work very hard at that. It's not always easy with the terminology sometimes, but we really are always open to any suggestions people have for how we can make things even easier. Knowing that the range of users are, really from GIS pros all the way down to elementary school kids. All right, anything further? Any last questions? Then I will stop sharing now and just say thanks again to everybody for joining. And we'll have this posted on the website probably by tomorrow afternoon at the latest, if not today, depending on how time goes. But I really appreciate everybody being on this. And if you ever need me to do a private tutorial for, you and your some people from your office, if you're working on a project, we can do something that's specifically a deep dive toward marine life data or whatever kind of things that you need. We are open to do that. So happy to help.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, everybody have a great Thanksgiving and thanks again for joining.